Your salary is not income. It is the cage. Your benefits are not rewards. They are the lock. You don't stay because you love the work. You stay because you fear losing the health insurance and the 401k match, calling this stability, when Machiavelli called it gilded submission. You are trading your future for a dental plan and a resume without a gap. Every month, you refuse to see the blueprints of this prison. You are signing another year onto your own sentence. This is not a career. This is a custody agreement. In the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through the architectural design of the prison you call a career. This is not a lecture meant to inspire fear. It is a clinical demonstration meant to show you the blueprints. You cannot escape a fortress if you do not understand how its walls are reinforced. 5 centuries ago, Machiavelli warned that the ruler who relies on the favors of others, rather than his own skill, is building on sand. He will perish the moment those favors are retracted. Your corporate benefits are exactly that, a favor with a conditional expiration date. To understand how you are being held, we must dissect the 3 primary mechanisms of your control: the cage, the lock, and the warden. We will strip away the illusions of the modern workplace until only the cold mathematics of dependency remain. Let's begin with the physical boundary of your life, the thing you call your paycheck. Open your last pay stub, look at the number. Now answer one question. Is that number a reflection of your value or a reflection of your obedience? We like to tell ourselves that the paycheck is a trophy. We call it an income. But a trophy is for a winner. A paycheck is for a prisoner who has successfully stayed in his cell for another 30 days. Your salary is not a reward for your talent. It is the precise market price your employer is willing to pay to keep you from walking out the door. It is calculated with surgical accuracy. It is high enough to prevent you from quitting, yet it is low enough to ensure you never achieve true financial autonomy. You are not being paid what you are worth. You are being paid the minimum amount required to keep you from becoming a threat to the status quo. Think of your salary as the dimensions of your cage. You might work hard, you might get a 5% raise, and you might even move into a bigger office with a window. But in the architecture of employment, a raise is just a slightly larger cage. You can stretch your legs now. You can afford a better brand of coffee. You can turn around more comfortably, but the bars are still there. You are still confined within the perimeter of someone else's permission. You cannot go where you want. You cannot wake up when you want. You cannot speak your mind without checking the employee handbook first. The walls are just further apart, so you don't notice them as much. You take pride in that number. You celebrate it. But while you are celebrating the figure on your stub, your employer is celebrating the gap between that number and the actual value you generated. That gap is where their profit lives. That gap is the tax you pay for the security of your cell. You are incredibly efficient at selling your hours, but they are incredibly efficient at buying your future. You are trading the most finite resource in the universe, your time, for a flat rate that has been capped by a committee. Every morning you wake up, you aren't building a legacy. You are maintaining the structural integrity of your own confinement. This isn't metaphor. This is mathematics. Let's look at the cold, hard numbers that define your reality. This is the part where the illusion of the fair day's work finally falls apart. Between 1979 and 2025, productivity in the American workforce increased by nearly 90%. That means you are producing almost double what your parents did. You are faster, smarter, and more integrated. But look at the corresponding wages. Real pay has only grown by about 33%. There is a 57% gap between what you produce and what you receive. Where did that 57% go? It didn't vanish. It was redirected into the construction and maintenance of the very system that holds you. It went to the shareholders, the lobbyists, and the executives who manage your cage. You're working twice as hard to build a prison that is twice as strong for someone else, while your own living space remains exactly the same size. This is the productivity heist. This is the silent extraction of your life force. Today, 67% of workers are living paycheck to paycheck. This means that 2/3 of the prisoners in this economic landscape do not have enough capital to buy a ticket out of the facility, even though they show up and perform every single day. You are running on a treadmill that powers someone else's lights. You are trapped in a mathematical death trap called linear labor. Machiavelli understood this as the fundamental nature of Fortuna. You are producing on land that you do not own. You are generating wealth within a framework that you do not control. You do not lack effort. You do not lack intelligence. What you lack is ownership. You are a sharecropper in a digital age, harvesting crops on a plantation where you are only allowed to keep the scraps. You are fueling an engine that is designed to keep you exactly where you are. But the cage alone would never hold you. Plenty of people endure a small cage. What keeps you truly trapped is something far more insidious. Because you call it a gift, you call it your benefits package. Your benefits package is not a perk. It is a dependency infrastructure, a series of locks so elegant you actually thanked the locksmith for installing them. We use warm, fuzzy words like company culture and we're a family, but look through the clinical lens of the prison. Health insurance is conditional medical bail. You are permitted to stay healthy only as long as you remain obedient. The moment you stop producing, the protection vanishes. In this country, a single emergency room visit without coverage can liquidate a family's entire life savings. Your employer understands this mathematical leverage perfectly. You understand it too. Both of you know that this quiet, underlying terror keeps you sitting at your desk far more effectively than any legal contract ever could. You aren't staying for the work. You are staying because you are being held hostage by the possibility of sickness. Then there is the 401k match, what Machiavelli would call hostage capital. Your employer takes a fraction of the value you created and puts it into a vault that you are legally forbidden from touching until you are 65. You call it retirement planning. I call it a bribe to keep you waiting. They are holding your own wealth in a separate room, promising to give it back only once you are too old to be dangerous, too tired to innovate, and too invested in the system to ever rebel against it. You don't own that capital. You are merely allowed to watch it grow through a glass partition. And then, the most ironic lock of all, paid time off. This is freedom by the ration. You are granted exactly 10 to 15 days of liberty per year. It is a calculated dosage. It is just enough rest to prevent you from suffering a total psychological breakdown and quitting. But it is never enough time to allow you to step far enough away from the machine to realize you don't need it. Insurance keeps you afraid. The 401k keeps you waiting. PTO keeps you just rested enough to never revolt. You are a valued team member in the same way a battery is a valued component of a circuit. You are used until drained, then replaced. Here is the math they never want you to do. This is where we calculate the price tag on your soul. If you walked out of that office today, what would it actually cost to replace the perks you've been conditioned to worship? This is your freedom cost. To buy your own health insurance on the open marketplace or through a private provider, you are looking at $500 to $700 a month for an individual. For a family, that number spikes to $1,500 or more. Your 401k match. The average employer contributes 3 to 6% of your salary. roughly $1,500 to $5,000 a year. Add in the 2 weeks of wages you lose if you don't have paid leave. When you add it all up, your freedom cost is approximately $12,000 to $20,000 a year. That is the number. That is the price of your liberty. You think your benefits have a value of $20,000. In reality, that $20,000 is the annual rent your employer pays to own your future. They are purchasing your silence, your compliance, and your best years for less than $2,000 a month. And the tragedy is, you've been trained to think that's a good deal. Machiavelli made a brutal distinction in The Prince between borrowed weapons, what he called Armi Proprie, and one's own weapons, or Armi Proprie. Your benefits are borrowed weapons. You are allowed to use them to survive, but they do not belong to you. They can be withdrawn, modified, or canceled the very second you are no longer useful to the state. A true prince never fights with borrowed weapons because they fail you exactly, the battle gets difficult. A prince fights with his own weapons, with skills, assets, and leverage that no employer and no HR policy can ever take away. You are currently defenseless. But here is the part that will keep you awake tonight. The cage and the lock are not what truly imprison you. There is a warden in this prison, and you already know who it is, because you see that warden every morning in the mirror. The most effective prison is the one where the prisoner volunteers as the guard. You do not need steel chains when you have Stockholm Syndrome, and the modern worker has the most advanced case of occupational Stockholm Syndrome in human history. You have been conditioned to believe that you are a victim of a system you cannot control, but the cold truth is far more uncomfortable. You are the primary architect of your own confinement. The first mechanism of this internal prison is the identity lock. Think about the last time someone asked who you are. What was the first thing you said? I work at Google. I'm a senior associate at a Fortune 500. I'm in marketing. You have fused your biological identity with your corporate function. You no longer view work as something you do. It has become what you are. This is why the thought of quitting feels like a death sentence. It isn't just a financial decision. It is an existential crisis. If you lose the title, you lose the person. You take pride in that job title. But what is a title? It is the name given to you by the warden, so the facility can keep track of your output. In a literal prison, you are a number. In a corporate one, you are a lead consultant. Both serve the same purpose, to replace your soul with a designation. You have built your house on a plot of land that you do not own, and you are terrified to leave because you forgot how to exist outside the walls. Your identity has become a series of likes and endorsements on a platform designed to auction your labor to the highest bidder. The second mechanism is the system of social reinforcement. Your prison doesn't need high-voltage fences because your family and friends act as the perimeter guards. Think about the last time you complained about your job. What did your mother say? At least you have benefits. What did your friends say when you talked about starting your own thing? Don't be reckless. The economy is too volatile right now. They aren't trying to hurt you. They are speaking from the inside of their own cages. When every prisoner agrees that life inside the cell is the only stable way to live, the prison disappears from sight. It becomes the natural order of the world. Your peers do not want you to escape because your freedom would be a silent indictment of their own cowardice. They will call you obsessed. They will call you greedy. They will call you unrealistic. But understand this. Their concern is not love. It is the prison's immune system attacking a cell that is trying to mutate. The final mechanism is the fear architecture, the three ghosts that haunt your every decision. The gap in the resume, the loss of insurance, and the 401k penalty. These are not real barriers. They are psychological phantoms designed to keep you paralyzed. Look at them through the lens of logic. A gap in your resume only matters if you are applying to live in another prison. The loss of health insurance, it costs $500 a month, less than the payment on the car you bought to drive yourself to a job you hate. The 10% 401k penalty. 10% of your freedom is a bargain compared to 100% of your servitude. You are being held by shadows. You stay in the cage because you are afraid of the dark outside, not realizing that the dark is where the keys are hidden. You have become an accomplice in your own captivity. You are the victim, you are the guard, and you are the warden. The cage is real. The lock is real. But the warden? The warden is a choice. But if the warden is a choice, then there must be a way to fire the warden. Machiavelli found it. He called it Virtù, and it is the exact opposite of everything you've been conditioned to believe about money, work, and freedom. Fortuna is the belief that the warden will one day open the door for you. It is the prayer of the obedient prisoner. Everything you have been taught to call a strategic career plan is actually a desperate gamble on the whims of a god that doesn't know you exist. Think about your last promotion. Was it a result of your objective genius? Or was it because the budget allowed it and your manager liked your tone? Think about your salary. Is it guaranteed, or does it exist at the mercy of a quarterly earnings report? Everything you rely on is external. A raise, dependent on a boss. A promotion, dependent on office politics. Better benefits, dependent on HR policy. Not being fired, dependent on a macro economy you have zero influence over. You call this a strategy. Machiavelli called it living by the grace of Fortuna, and Fortuna has no grace. Fortuna is the weather. You do not control the rain, the wind, or the storm. Your entire career path is a picnic plan that requires a perfectly sunny sky for 40 years. If the sun shines, you develop. If the storm hits, if there is a layoff, a recession, or an AI replacement, you lose everything. And you have the audacity to call a picnic plan dependent on the weather a stable career. You are building a house on a volcanic island because the soil is rich today, ignoring the fact that you do not own the volcano. You make 5-year plans while your employer makes quarterly plans to eliminate your position. You are taught to save pennies while they are printing billions to buy the very assets that keep you in debt. You are waiting for a permission slip that will never come. You are praying to a warden who is already looking for a cheaper version of you. Realize this: if your survival depends on someone else's decision, you are not a professional. You are a professional victim. You have spent decades polishing the bars of your cell, hoping the shine will convince the owner to let you stay. But the ownership of your life is the only thing that matters. Virtù is the moment you stop praying for the warden's mercy and start building your own architecture. It is the cold realization that your current survival is based on Armi Proprie, borrowed weapons. Your benefits, your title, your desk, they are all weapons lent to you by the system to fight for the system. But borrowed weapons fail you exactly when the battle becomes lethal. Virtù is the discipline of creating Armi Proprie, your own arsenal. It is the shift from dependency to ownership. Fortuna is a paycheck that belongs to your employer. Virtù is a system that belongs to you. Fortuna is health insurance provided by a corporation. Virtù is the capital to buy your own safety. Fortuna is a 401k match you can't touch. Virtù is capital you deploy at will, under your command, at any second. This requires a shift in your financial DNA. You have already calculated your freedom cost. You know it takes roughly $12,000 to $20,000 a year to break the lock of benefits. Your objective is not to become a billionaire overnight. That is a lottery dream, another form of Fortuna. The objective of Virtù is to build a machine that covers your freedom cost through asymmetric income. Asymmetric income is money that does not require your physical presence or your obedience to a boss. It is the toll booth on a road you built. When your asymmetric income equals or exceeds your freedom cost, the lock on the cell door doesn't just open, it dissolves. You are no longer staying because you are afraid of losing your insurance. If you stay because it is a strategic choice. This is the moment you transition from being a prisoner to being an architect. You stop asking for permission and start issuing commands. Every financial decision you make from this second forward must pass through a single filter. Is this building my Armi Proprie, or is it reinforcing someone else's Armi Altrui? Are you buying a new car to impress other prisoners, or are you buying back your time? Forging the key to your own cell is the only work that matters. But knowing the key exists and knowing how to forge it are two different things. Forging it requires you to commit the one act the employment system considers treason. But here is where most prisoners fail. They realize they are in a cage. They feel the cold steel of the lock, and they panic. They try to escape through the front door. They quit their jobs on a whim. They announce to the world that they are going to follow their passion or find themselves. They burn the bridges behind them and leap into the void without a parachute or a plan. And almost invariably, they end up in a different cage, usually one that is smaller, darker, and more desperate than the first. Passion is not a strategy. Rebellion without resources is just a faster way to starve. Machiavelli never advised a prince to start a revolution until he had already secured an army, a fortress, and a supply line. The escape protocol is not an act of emotional impulse. It is an act of surgical decoupling. You do not leave the prison until you have already finished building the city you are moving to. This decoupling happens in what I call the Trojan Hours. These are the specific, stolen hours between 6 p.m. and midnight. These are the weekends the Warden thinks you are using to recharge, so you can be more productive for his engine on Monday. The system wants you to rest, to distract yourself with entertainment, and to spend your salary on toys so you can return to the plow with a smile. Instead, you use that time to build your ghost machinery, the digital systems, income assets, and automated workflows that generate value without your physical presence. Your employer pays you for 8 hours of your day to maintain the structural integrity of their fortress. You take 2 hours of your night to dig the tunnel. This is not a betrayal. It is strategic self-defense. In the Trojan Hours, you are no longer a senior associate. You are a founder. You are an engineer. You are a sovereign entity forging your own future. A prince prepares for war during times of peace. While you are sitting in your cell, receiving your steady paycheck and using your corporate insurance, you are in a state of artificial peace. This is the only time you have the luxury to fail. You use the security of the cage to fund the construction of the exit. You decouple your income from your time, one piece of machinery at a time, until the thread connecting you to the Warden is so thin it can be cut with a single stroke. When the ghost machinery is strong enough to cover your freedom cost, you don't escape. You simply walk out. There is a profound difference between a fugitive running into the woods and a prince leaving a battlefield because he has already won the war. One is a victim, the other is a master. But a tunnel without a destination is just a longer trap. Building machinery is useless if that machinery is just a copy of what everyone else is doing. If you build a business that looks like every other business, you have simply traded a large corporate warden for 1,000 small market wardens. The market does not reward effort. The market does not reward the hustle. The market only rewards the monopoly of one. In your current job, you are interchangeable. That is the reason why you are paid a market rate. If you disappeared tomorrow, the facility would have your replacement sitting in your chair and answering your emails by Monday morning. The cage exists because you are a commodity. To break the lock, you must become a monopoly. You must find a problem so specific, so painful, and so neglected that you are the only person capable of solving it. You don't compete on a crowded field. You own the field itself. You find the choke point in your industry, the one narrow pass where all value must pass through, and you build a toll booth there. This is the blueprint of Virtù. You aren't looking for a side hustle to buy more consumer garbage. You are looking for a monopoly position. You leverage your unique skills, your rare knowledge, and specific experience to create a solution that cannot be automated by AI or outsourced to a cheaper prisoner in another country. When you own the choke point, the marketplace stops telling you what you are worth and starts asking you what you charge. You become the only road to a destination that everyone needs to reach. You stop being a piece and start being the one who owns the game. Trojan Hours build the ghost machinery. The ghost machinery secures the monopoly of one. The monopoly of one covers the freedom cost, and once that cost is covered, the lock is broken forever. You are no longer a cog in a machine you don't own. You are the owner of a machine that no one else can replicate. You move from the defensive to the offensive. You stop being the prey and start being the architect of a new kingdom. But the prison does not surrender its inhabitants quietly. The moment it senses you building a tunnel, it deploys its final, most insidious defense. And this one doesn't come from the Warden. It comes from the other prisoners. The moment you start digging your tunnel, the facility will notice. But the first alarm won't be triggered by the Warden. It will be triggered by the people in the cells right next to you. Your friends, your family, and your closest colleagues. When they see you weaponizing your Trojan Hours, they will react with a peculiar kind of hostility disguised as concern. They will tell you that you're wasting your youth. They will ask why you can't just be present and enjoy the stability you've earned. They will whisper that you've become obsessed, or worse, that you've changed. They don't do this because they want to protect your happiness. They do this because your departure is the ultimate piece of evidence that they could leave too, but they chose not to. You have become a mirror. No one likes looking into a mirror at 3 a.m. only to realize they are the ones who chose the cage. Your ambition makes their compliance look like cowardice. They need you to stay so they can keep believing that the prison is the only world that exists. Their concern is not an act of love. It is the prison's immune system attacking a healthy cell that is trying to mutate into something free. The second layer of the recapture system is far more intimate, the guilt protocol. You have been socially engineered to feel like a traitor for wanting your life back. You are made to feel as though you are stealing time when you work on your own machinery while sitting at your desk. You feel a pang of dishonesty for building a future that doesn't include your employer's logo. You feel ungrateful for the benefits package they graciously provided you. This is the highest form of captivity, when the prisoner feels a moral obligation to the person holding the key. You have been taught that loyalty to a faceless corporation is a virtue, while loyalty to your own blood, your own legacy, and your own time is called greed. Machiavelli identified this as the most efficient form of control, making the victim thank the master for the chains. They gave you a paycheck just large enough to survive, and in exchange, they demanded the totality of your focus. You owe them nothing but the labor they purchased. Exterminate that guilt immediately. Gratitude for a cage is not a virtue, It is the final symptom of a surrendered spirit. If peer pressure and guilt fail to stop your progress, the system will deploy its final, most seductive weapon: the golden upgrade. This is the trap that kills most escape attempts because it feels like a victory. Your employer senses your detachment. They see the tunnel. And instead of punishing you, they offer you a counter-proposal, a raise, a promotion, a bigger bonus, a more prestigious title. This is not a recognition of your genius. It is a tactical reinforcement of your cell. They are offering you a larger cage with more expensive bedding so that you stop digging. They are buying your compliance at a higher market rate because they realize your exit would be a threat to their stability. Machiavelli warned that the prince who relies on the arms of others will never stand firm or sure, because those arms are not his own, and they can be turned against him the second his utility expires. A raise is just an increase in the annual rent for your soul. A prisoner in silk is still a prisoner. Do not be seduced by the luxury of a better cage. The recapture system only works on those who still believe the prison is a home. But once you have mapped the architecture, the walls begin to lose their weight. You are now aware of every snare, every lock, and every guard. But here is the truth the prison was built to hide from you. The truth that makes the cage dissolve, the lock irrelevant, and the warden disappear forever. You have completed the tour of your own confinement. You have seen the cage, the realization that your salary is not income, but the market price your employer pays for your quiet obedience. You have seen the lock, the understanding that your benefits are a dependency infrastructure wrapped in silk to keep you paralyzed by the fear of the unknown. And finally, you have seen the warden, the version of yourself that was conditioned to believe the cell was a sanctuary. Now, the blueprint is in your hands. You are looking at the entire architecture of your life through the clinical lens of power. And when you see the blueprint, you realize the ultimate truth. This prison has no functional locks. It never did. The door has only remained closed because you believed it was closed. The handle has been waiting for your touch since the day you entered, but you were trained to never look at your own hands. You have spent your life waiting for a pardon that was already granted the moment you were born. You are no longer the prisoner. You are the architect. You are no longer wearing the handcuffs. You are forging the key. The salary was the cage. The benefits were the lock. But you were always the key. The walls only have power as long as you refuse to walk through them. This is not the end of the tour. It is the beginning of your tactical deployment into the world of ownership. If you are ready to stop maintaining the walls of your own prison and start building your own sovereignty, then secure your position here for the next strategic update. Subscribing is not just supporting a channel. It is enrolling in the Escape Protocol. It is your formal commitment to receive the maps that the system has spent billions of dollars to hide from you. In our next session, we will perform a clinical, surgical dissection of exactly how to construct your own machinery, the primary system of ownable weapons that will eventually replace your paycheck. We will learn how to weaponize your stolen hours into a stream of asymmetric income that no corporation can ever seize and no global recession can ever touch. We will move from the theory of the cell to the high-velocity execution of the kingdom. The world built a cage and called it a career. It installed a lock and called it benefits. It appointed a warden and called it you. But a master does not live in cages. A master does not beg for a dental plan. A master builds kingdoms. And every kingdom in history starts with a single act of internal rebellion, the refusal to call the cage a home. Step through the door. The architect is waiting for you.